Welcome to Live Like an Acrobat. I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto, two-time World Acrobatic Gymnastics Champion, USA Gymnastics Hall of Fame member, and Cirque artist. I'm also an advocate for rain. On each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, I discuss acro handstanding in terms of training tips, coaching, and I explore circus and acrobatic gymnastics competitive life as I have lived it from past to current, and I theorize on what the future may bring in these fields. On each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, I will bring you insight through my own experiences, which are rooted in a perspective built on social justice advocacy and how these important issues continue to intersect between the circus arts and acrobatics competitive world at large. On each episode, I have the pleasure of discussing these various narratives with a variety of fascinating special guests. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast. Please consider a donation to encourage the continuation and evolution of this podcast. The details of how to donate are located in the show notes. Please make sure to check out the CircuspreneurBlog.com for extended conversations and interactive content of each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast. I am available for handstand private sessions and workshops through aerialfitbodies.com, and in a new announcement, I'm also a Circo certified trainer. Check out Circo.co, a new circus school online international platform where you can learn hand balancing with me and learn so many other circus disciplines from trained cirque performers from all over the world. On this episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, I have the pleasure of interviewing co-founder of AcroCompanion, David Gillemot. My upcoming participation in AcroCompanion is all about mentorship. And so I was inspired recently by the story that the late and beloved Chadwick Boseman, the Black Panther, the extraordinarily gifted BIPOC artist that left us far too soon, told about his journey to the big screen. And it was due in part largely to mentorship. And the story that he told and the person that he honored, I thought was perfect to include in this episode of Live Like an Acrobat, which focuses on the brilliant efforts of AcroCompanion, which AcroCompanion is so many things, but this part of AcroCompanion is especially special and close to my heart as it seeks to bond and create connection of acrobatic gymnastics champions throughout the years. Chadwick Boseman recited such a beautiful poem, and it went like this. An offering from a sage and a king is more than silver and gold. It is a seed of hope, a bud of faith. There is no Black Panther without Denzel Washington, Boseman said. And not just because of me, but my whole cast, that generation, stands on your shoulders. It was discovered that Boseman and his class had been accepted into the British American Drama Academy's Midsummer program, but would not be attending because they couldn't afford it. Boseman's mentor and teacher at the time, Felicia Rashad, revealed that she made a phone call to a friend of mine, and he called me back, and we talked about it for about 5 minutes, and he said, "Okay, I got this money," Rashad said. Chadwick Boseman continued in his praise of Denzel Washington. As fate would have it, I was one of the students that he paid for, Boseman said. Imagine receiving the letter that your tuition for that summer was paid for and that your benefactor was none other than the dopest actor on the planet. Without the miraculous gifting of these exemplary mentors, there very well might not have ever been the awe-inspiring and globally uniting icon, Black Panther. I had a wonderful conversation with co-founder of AcroCompanion, David Gillemot. David is fantastic and has stayed with the sport and has stayed involved for decades post his competitive career. You're going to hear two people that love acro and love acrobatic gymnastics, and we are from the same generation and the same era, so that was especially special in speaking with David. We speak the same acro language, so to speak. And I just love that David created, along with his co-founder, Landers, they created AcroCompanion out of a passion for gymnastics. And they have a passion to make gymnastics overall fairer and more correct, more understandable, more entertaining. And this is so important in creating a more progressive competitive environment. This will help propel gymnastics and acrobatic gymnastics forward in healthier and new age ways that athletes competing now and generations before are wanting to see. AcroCompanion is focused on evolving time-consuming methods so that more energy and focus can be put on what's really important, and that's so representative of the times we are in. It's honing our focus to what matters and whittling away the layers that keep us from what matters. By preserving precious elements of time, AcroCompanion is seeking to create better athletes and better systems in place that will serve them. So please welcome to the show my special guest, David Gillemot. Hi, David. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for taking the time to be here and speak with me today.
Hi, Shenea. I'm happy to be on your show.
Thank you so much, David. I'm so excited to be a part of AcroCompanion's up-and-coming meet and greet series with other acrobatic gymnastics champions. I think it's such an amazing way to generate more connection for athletes from different generations. We want listeners to know more about this participatory aspect of AcroCompanion, as it's a resource that will be providing outreach for athletes beginning September 12th this year and will carry on as a monthly initiative. We will come back to discuss the meet and greet series later in the podcast. David, I wanted to begin by saying that AcroCompanion is many things and is a multi-layered effort. Most notably, it's prominently a very sophisticated system that your team has created in response to assisting in crafting competitions. Your mission is to reimagine the world of gymnastics to make gymnastics fairer, more correct, more understandable, and more entertaining. AcroCompanion is a brilliant digitized software system that is bringing ease of orchestration to the competition realm for gymnastics disciplines. I personally also see it as a potential tool to be used within the circus arts world, circus competitions, or the circus festival environment to assist in event structure. Also, for those unfamiliar with the acrobatic gymnastics competitive world, Belgium, which is where AcroCompanion is based, has long been the hub for major international competitions for years. I have sweet memories of competing in Belgium, and I feel it's a rite of passage, so to speak, attending your first Flanders Cup, which has long been a popular competition to attend and was always, for many American acrobats during previous generations, their first international competition that they would attend. So it's no surprise that the genius of AcroCompanion has been born out of Belgium, actually. Please, David, before we go into the many avenues that are AcroCompanion, can you please tell listeners what is your background in acrobatic gymnastics? How are you involved in the sport currently? And how did your history in the sport lead you to co-create the innovation that is AcroCompanion?
Well, my background in the sport, I was just as you were in Flanders, a mixed pair. I actually finished my career season 2001-2002. So the moment I think you become world champion, it was around that period, I think. That was a period that I finished my career as a gymnast. Then I started coaching, which I'm still doing. And currently I'm also more or less, let's count more or less, 8-9 years international judge.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's fantastic. So you've really maintained a full-on presence within the sport. And so, David, how did your experience as a competitor affect your decision to create AcroCompanion? Obviously, you've been a judge as well, so I feel like that would also have affected you greatly in wanting to bring this new model to the competitive world.
I think as a judge more than as a gymnast, because I've judged so many competitions and I've seen so many things happening that first of all, competitions as a judge are, well, kind of boring after a while. It takes a long time before a competition is finished. There's so many discussions going on because the rules are not easy in acrobatics. So I wanted to solve that problem, saying, okay, what if we can, well, it's not our job to simplify the rules, but what if we can make a system that apply the rules for you so that you just see if our application is proposing that it is correct. It will take less time at that moment at the competition. So competitions will get easier. There's less stress. There is less discussions at the tables, which is in the end the benefit for the gymnasts. That's how I actually started to do it. And AcroCompanion actually started as an application to make tear sheets because I was also coaching and nobody likes to do it. Trust me, there is no coach in the world who likes to make the tear sheets. It's a hell. You have to copy paste images out of PDFs. Sometimes they turn out black on your Excel sheet. Then you need to cut them again. You need to look up the values. In the end, you think you did a good job. You come in a competition, and apparently, if you forgot something, again, the gymnasts are being punished because of a mistake of the coach. And that's actually how we started to get the idea. It was Bram and the other owner of AcroCompanion, Lander, who started the idea, let's try to digitize that part of acrobatics. I step in, let's say 4 months later, because Bram had a family and he had to spend some time with his kids, and AcroCompanion does take a lot of our time to develop the system. So I took over. I think that was more or less 4 years ago. So me and Lander set up AcroCompanion, and we started just to put everything of the images and the values in our system. But then once we had that, we were thinking, but okay, it's a nice tool. You can create it faster, but you still don't know if whatever you created in the system was correct. So we started to implement all the rules of acrobatics for all levels, all FIG levels in the beginning, in there to actually notify coach when he created an exercise that maybe he forgot something or he did something that was not allowed. So when that tear sheet has been checked in the system and you go to a competition, you already know that your tear sheet will be correct and your kids will not be punished because of a mistake that you made on a tear sheet. That's actually how we started.
Fascinating. David, please go into more detail of how AcroCompanion can be used to set up a competition. What is the brilliance behind the model? What does AcroCompanion do to enhance the overall competitive experience for coaches, clubs, judges, and athletes? I love that it is an international system that can be used by anyone. It seems to erase the nuances that could bring complications to organizing and running a competition. What are the issues of the past that AcroCompanion solves?
Well, the first thing that we do is, because we develop the application together, let's say with a lot of help of the TC of FIG. So all the rules which are in the system are for everybody the same in the world. So the nuance of, let's say, this country interprets the rule like that, the other country like that, it's gone, because the rules in our application is the same for everybody. Also, if you create elements, you will have the same value for every team. It doesn't matter from which country you come. That in the past sometimes had also an impact on competitions, that competitors from strong countries know the rules better than new countries. So in the end, they turned out with a higher difficulty value because the new countries didn't know exactly how to do it, and it was not always picked up by the correcting of the terror sheets. So that's actually the first thing we accomplished, is everybody starts at the same place and can go to a competition with the same difficulty value. What we are bringing into acrobatics judging is the normal way of judging you do on paper. So all the judges, the difficulty judges, they have their tear sheets with the exercise that will be performed, and the artistry and the execution judges, they have to write some stuff down during judging. Now, what we did is inventing is maybe not the right word. We developed a system that the tear sheet that has been created in our system can be judged on in real time. So the judge doesn't even have to write stuff anymore. He can just click on an element, the execution judge, and saying, well, this is your penalty for that element, your deduction, and it will automatically calculate your end execution score, and it will go to the CGP. The DJ is even better. The DJ can apply all the penalties that he should be able to apply, and in real time, our application will calculate the difficulty value, see if it still have all the specific requirements that exercise needs, and if there is a mistake against that specific requirement, automatically the correct penalty will be given. So in the end of the exercise, no judge needs to calculate anymore. He just look at the proportion that our system is giving, and or he agrees with our proposal, or he says, I think you're wrong here, which until today, in the beginning, we had some mistakes in there. I think the last competitions were almost, bulletproof our system for now.
What are the other issues of the past that AcroCompanion solves for competitions? And also another question would be, what is the feedback that you've gotten when AcroCompanion has been used, either by judges, coaches, clubs, athletes? What is the response when AcroCompanion has been used?
Yeah. So what we also brought into the competition is after an exercise is being done, you have this area, you will probably know it as well, it's called the kiss and cry. You go there after your exercise to take a deep breath. Your coach will join you and tell them how good of a job you did and where you might have made some small errors or what does he think about the exercise. So it's the place where you await your score to show up on the screen. What we brought into that part is that the tear sheet, because now it's all digital, the tear sheet that the DJ has used to judge on, after the exercise, it will be presented on the kiss and cry area. So you actually know as a gymnast and the coach where you made your mistakes, where you had a time fault, which element has been cut. Everything you need to know from the DJ, you know. And I thought that was really important because it's the only thing that you can file a complaint against. It's your difficulty value. And sometimes you don't know what happened because that information is, unknown. You just know that you have less, but why? You don't know. But with our system, immediately after your exercise, you know exactly what the DJ did and why he did it. So there is more transparency during the competition for the coaches and the gymnasts. The reactions, I think for that part was really well. I think everybody likes it. Everybody loves what we did there. I think every coach in the world, I'm not going to say that every coach in the world uses it already, but I think we're more or less around 60 or 50% of the world that uses our system. I don't think anyone will want to go back to the old system because I think in the beginning we calculated a senior terror sheet as a coach to make. It takes more or less 40 minutes. They now do it in 4 minutes maximum. If you use the system a lot, you can even do it in 2 or in 3 minutes. So the time you save there is huge. You spend one evening and you made all the tear sheets of your club. Otherwise, you spend a week or a week and a half on it. For the judges, I think most of the judges that use the system are really enthusiastic about it. It's just it's something new, and that scares, well, of some people in the beginning. But after they use it like 2 or 3 routines, they're okay with it. But the first time you use it, it's a big step going from just sitting on behind a desk and write some stuff down. You have the time to calculate, to suddenly go into the system. You know that everything is logged, and you have to click on the element at that moment, and you don't have a lot of time to rethink your deductions about your elements. It's there. You have to put it at that moment, and the moment is past. So I think for the judges, the first time they use it, it's a bit scary, but after 3 routines, they're okay with it. The reaction of the federations is actually really good. I think we have a good model, which our price setting against what we offer, it's really cheap. I'm gonna say it honestly, we are actually too cheap. They get a lot for not a lot of money. They don't have to hire any judges anymore to correct their tear sheets. It's all in the system approved before the competition. So even if there is a problem, it's all solved before people enter the competition. That's a big difference with how it used to be. You normally enter a competition, you give in your tear sheet the moment you arrive, then it needs to be corrected. And if there is a big problem, you're already on the competition, then it's really hard to change your routine because of a mistake you make. But if they're in the system for 1 or 2 weeks before the competition, the coach and the kids still have the time to adjust some stuff. So the organizers are, I think, the one who works with us are really happy with it.
That's wonderful. And I can see why. it's amazing. David, how do you see AcroCompanion continuing to change the competitive gymnastics realms for the future? Do you have an even more expansive model that you are working towards? And what is your goal for this aspect of AcroCompanion?
AcroCompanion in the future, I think we would really like to go to an end-to-end solution, so that we provide a platform where you can do your membership, your registration, judging, integrations with scoring, an end-to-end solution. That's actually our goal. And our ultimate dream is, of course, being a partner of FIG. We are talking with them now, I think, for 2-3 years. Last year, we were able to, well, actually, it's this season. We were allowed to work with them for the World Cups, but then COVID-19 came along and it destroyed a little bit the season. So we are hoping we're going to have a second chance for the next season. That's actually our ultimate goal, to work together with FIG and try to improve the judging part on educational purposes and also during the competitions.
Fantastic. I support you in your goal, and I have no doubt that it will come to fruition as things hopefully continue to open up next year. Thank you, David. Another facet of AcroCompanion are coaching workshops. Can you tell listeners, David, what AcroCompanion offers with these workshops? How can those interested get involved? And how are your coaching workshops going to be run, and with what goal in mind? What sets your coaching workshops apart from others? Did you have a specific model in mind for your workshops? Are they geared towards creating more balance and assistance during the ongoing pandemic and beyond?
Well, it's actually, the idea started, I'm in the acrobatics world for a long time. I have a lot of international friends. And because of COVID-19, everything is down. So all the workshops all over the world, events, competitions, they're down. We all thought it was going to be for 1 month or 2 months, but it's already now for almost half a year. And then the idea started because, I have friends calling me, how is it in Belgium? Can we do workshops in Belgium? Because here we're not allowed to. And then the idea started, probably it's going to last some more months. So I wanted to help in the beginning my friends to try to find a way to organize online workshops to be able to, it's their living, they don't have another job, it's their job. So I wanted me and Lander to help them with AcroCompanion and saying, why don't we, put our shoulders under a project and try to organize online workshops. So the first thing I did was calling some of my acrobatic friends like Revas from Russia, Lorenzo from Portugal, Sergei Trechakov, who's head coach in Belgium. I asked Neil Griffiths. I asked a lot of high-level coaches, okay, guys, what do you think? How do you see this? Do you think you might be interested? And all of them were really enthusiastic because they said, yeah, why not? This gives us the opportunity to share our knowledge online. Also, the reach you have by doing that is a lot bigger than trying to get a coach coming to you, because I can imagine if, for instance, you're living in Australia and you want to have a coach from UK coming, there is a budget because he needs to have their flights and hotels and stuff like that. If you can do that online, even unexperienced coaches or clubs who doesn't have those finances can step in and can learn a lot. So that's how the idea started. So what we are doing now is we are looking for a way to have the technology to do that, because a Skype might not be enough, or a Zoom meeting, because we want to do stuff. The coach is involved. We want to have kids on there so that they can see what the coach would like to do, and that people can start asking questions at the same time. And so we are still looking into the correct tools to do it. But from the moment we have them, we will probably start small and then build it up.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing when it is officially released. David, because I explore all things handstands on this podcast, can you provide a handstanding training tip or two, or some handstand training advice for listeners and for handstand enthusiasts?
For handstand enthusiasts, try to find a really good gymnastics club and don't believe everything they say on the internet. I think that would be my most important advice.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Do you have any other handstand training tip that we can share with listeners? Even though I feel like you pretty much encompassed the most important training tip of handstanding for all time. But
handstand, I think you have to practice a lot. It's not something you learn in 1 second. I would start by try to do it against the wall, not too long. Try to get exercises to make your core stronger, because the stronger your core is and the more, how do you say it in English? Let me try to, the more knowledge you have on how to use your muscles, the easier it will become in the end. So you just start small, you go against the wall, you swing up to handstand, and try to do some power. And then, try to go without the wall, get a mat behind you, and just try. It's trial and error.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. The listeners will really appreciate that. I am consistently trying to bring handstanders at large back to the acrobatic gymnastics models, the competitive world models, as I feel sometimes those get kind of like lost in the shuffle of kind of the superficial handstanding out there. So that's why I think it's really important for, long-term acro coaches such as yourself to stay in this conversation and stay at the forefront of this handstanding conversation, David. I think it's very important, and it encourages the overall safety for those exploring handstanding for the first time, or or those that are really not dialed very much into the traditional kind of handstanding coaching that you would get from our competitive environment. So I'm looking forward to also seeing more of that through AcroCompanion's coaching workshops. I can't say it enough about how I think that will add something so integral to the, I believe, handstand movement that continues to gain steam. So I'm looking forward to that high level coaching that people will be able to have access to all over the world. So thank you. And so now, David, to move on to the meet and greet series that I will actually have the pleasure to participate in. David, where did you gain the concept of this meet and greet for your favorite champions, actually for free series? This has been something that my former competitive partner, Arthur Davis, and I have long thought about, as other disciplines within USA Gymnastics, for example, have usually had meet and greets with their champions consistently and allowed for younger generations to maintain bonds with them over decades. I've always felt that this has been lacking in acrobatic gymnastics. There has never been a consistency with having former champions having a reoccurring presence facilitated by the organization. And I think this is to a huge detriment for the younger generations who miss out on the wisdom and ongoing support from past champions who could be their allies within the acrobatic gymnastics community. I think it's brilliant that AcroCompanion is taking this initiative during the pandemic with competitions canceled and coaches and clubs constantly seeking to keep their athletes inspired for the next season. This is a hard year for the athletes, and I know what it feels like to miss out on big competitions due to world events. Maintaining prep and inspiration can feel like a battle, but I think with efforts like AcroCompanion, it's an amazing way to make the transition into next year easier, to let the athletes know that they are not alone and that they have what it takes to be adaptable as acrobats and to see it through. I think it's also very important for wisdom to be passed down from generation to generation because it makes each generation better, stronger, and more resilient. This is also the reason why I'm participating on panels for the Circus Talk Network, most recently their Wake Up to Inclusion series. I want to be helpful to the newer circus generations, and that includes competitive acrobats that will transition into circus after they stop competing. So back to my original question, David. Where did AcroCompanion gain the concept of the Champions Meet and Greet? Who will be some of the participants, and what is the response so far?
Well, to be honest, the idea actually came from my girlfriend. I remember in 2008 at the roundtable meeting, it was one of the coaches who said that because of the current rules, how world events are organized, it's really hard to have idols, to create idols in our sport. In artistic gymnastics, for instance, some of the athlete goes 3-4 cycles that they can participate on Olympics or a World Championship. In acrobatics, more or less maximum 4 years, and then there will be other mixed pairs or other trios or whatever, sometimes even 2 years. So it's really hard to create idols that everybody still remembers. So it was my girlfriend actually saying, but why don't we do something like this to do it? And I said, actually, that's not a bad idea, because we had two things that we solved by that. It was, first of all, to create icons and that people still remember those, because I have the feeling, and it was my personal feeling, that once you're out of the sport, 2 years later, nobody remembers you. Maybe except people from your club or people that are close to you. And that's really pity, because during the last 20, 30, 40 years, we had some amazing gymnasts on the floor. And I really thought it was pity that they are being forgotten. So it was a way to bring them back into, well, current acrobatics. At the same time, we can create icons because we have some really amazing kids on the floor. They're actually young adults or adults now. And the other reason why we wanted to do it is, I remember when I was a really young kid and I saw people performing on television, it was amazing. But I never had the chance to see them, let's say even talk to them. And we want to give the opportunity to every kid in the world. It doesn't matter which level you have. It doesn't matter which country you come from. Everybody in the world will have the same chance to talk with people, high-level gymnasts or current or ex-world champion, European champion, World Cup winners, European Games winners. We have a lot of champions in the pool that we use. And so we had actually 3 things that we would solve by just organizing this. And it was my girlfriend who came up with the idea. And I started to talk about it. I talked about it with Lander, saying, I think it's a really good thing to do. We do it for free. It's something we offer as AcroCompanion to the acrobatics community for free. And the last part, of course, by doing that, we also found another way to promote our beautiful sport. Because you see artistic gymnastics on every television channel. If there is a major competition, acrobatics, you really have to look really hard, and then probably it's on some small channel for 5 minutes. So in this way, we also promote the sport from our side. Well, I have a lot of contacts in the sport, so going from coaches to judging, because I'm already so long in the sport, that I just picked up the phone, start calling around, start sending emails, and one led to another, and then it was published on Facebook, and it's found its way to a lot of people. So we have a lot of ex-champions or current champions contacting us from all over the world who wants to participate. So I think we have a really nice team we can come up with.
That's so special. I'm so in love with this idea and the concept, and I'm so grateful to your girlfriend for coming up with this beautiful idea for connectivity between the generations. I think that it's going to be so helpful during this time and just beyond. And I feel like you're totally creating the ability to have idols within the sport, which I think is like really long overdue. So I'm happy for everybody up and coming to feel like they're going to be seen and preserved throughout their career and post-career. I think that's so important to increase the longevity of the acrobatic gymnastics careers, like you're saying, and you're facilitating that in a really brilliant way. So I'm excited to see it continue to evolve as well, but I can't see it not generating what I feel like we've all felt as kind of like lifers attached in love to our sport, what we've really wanted to see it grow and see it, I think, fostered throughout the different levels and stages of people's connection to the sport. So thank you so much, David. And to my next question, what do you think is the most important aspect for coaches, clubs, and parents to focus on with their athletes at the moment, David? And how has the pandemic affected acrobatic gymnastics, specifically in Belgium?
Well, the pandemic, honestly, it was a hell, because our sport is made out of contact. So it's the first sport that went out, and it's also the last sport to come in again. We were forced to go back to basics, and instead of doing acrobatics, the first thing we were allowed to do is do some individual elements, some core training, flexibility, those things which we have been doing for, I think, more or less 3 months after a period out of 2 months. And in this part of the country, we were allowed to do contact sports again since this week. So we were out from somewhere in March, I think, if I remember correctly, until now. So for acrobatics, it will be a really strange season this year. We have a delay of 4 or 5 months of working together. So the pandemic really didn't do well for our sports. The other question, Shenea, was...
What do you think is the most important aspect for coaches, clubs, and parents to focus on with their athletes at the moment?
Well, I think what we are doing now is try to make sure that every gymnast in the sport hall feels safe. I think that's one of the biggest points we are looking into. I think the past, and I'm talking about like years ago, showed us some other things. I'm really happy that because of some things that happened around the world, the focus was now put again on the safety of the gymnast. And I think that's the most important thing as a coach, to be sure that your kid is not only healthy, but also safe and feel good in the gym.
Beautiful. And for my last question, David, what is your hope and vision for acrobatic gymnastics as a sport for the future?
Well, that it will be Olympic. That one day we will be Olympic. It will not solve all the problems, but it will solve a lot of problems.
Yes. Agreed. I second that in the most powerful way. And can you expand a little bit on that, of what do you think acrobatic gymnastics becoming an Olympic sport will do for acrobatic gymnastics?
Well, from the moment acrobatics will be Olympic, there will be probably every country will get some money from the government. If you have money from the government, you will be able to set up a better environment, better sports hall, better material. You will be allowed or able to keep your older gymnasts longer, which will be better for the level, which will be better for transitional to younger and other teams. No, I really think from the moment it will be Olympic, there will be a lot of new countries stepping in, because there will be funds to do it, and we will only be able to grow from that moment. I think the growth is being held down because we are not Olympic, and that's the circle we're into. They're actually, I think FIG wants us to grow before we can be Olympic, but we have the feeling we cannot grow because we are not Olympic yet. And that's actually the problem for now.
I actually agree with that. Do you know of any other campaigns or anything else being done kind of behind the scenes that is working on that Olympic vision happening? I mean, acrobatic gymnastics has exhibitioned at the Olympics. I want listeners to know that. So we have done exhibitions at the Olympics. It has not, like it has for other sports, turned into acrobatic gymnastics being seen as recognized as an actual Olympic sport. So do you know of anything? I believe that there was maybe a petition that was circling around at one point that was trying to get acrobatic gymnastics recognized as an Olympic sport. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if you have ever heard of that. I think I signed a petition. Yeah. Okay.
It was a friend of mine. It was a friend of mine who did it. It was Lorenzo Franca from Portugal who put it online.
Okay. Yes. Perfect. Wonderful. So yes, I signed that. So do you know what has happened with that? What has become of it? And do you know also, David, of what else is keeping acrobatic gymnastics out of that Olympic realm?
Well, I can only guess or only assume things because I'm not in the committee who goes over those decisions. I think there's not a lot of countries at senior level. I think it's also about the fact that they don't want to see young kids with adults performing on the floor. I think because this is not something that FIG wants. I think it's more or less decision of the IOC that they don't want to see kids performing on the floor, but adults. I also think that I'm not sure about this one, but I think there's only an allowance of certain amount of this kind of sports, and I think there's already a maximum. So if we want to get in, another one needs to get out. I think it's more something like this. And honestly, maybe it's not smart to say it in a podcast, but I think there needs to be money involved, or a really important person who can really push acrobatics to the front.
Yes, that has also been a part conversations and dialogues that I have been a part of for so many years in and about what we think needs to happen to get acro and what needs to be that bigger push. Maybe a famous person, or as you said, somebody with the financial means to be able to push it into the Olympics too and back it in that way. I find acrobatic gymnastics is such a unique sport. I think that there are so many special things about it that you're saying in some ways, yes, we know some of those special things I think are being held against acrobatic gymnastics, but that's what makes the sport so unique. So what I also hope is that if it does become an Olympic sport, we don't have to give up the originality of what acrobatic gymnastics is to get into the Olympics either. So I think that there will probably be a fine line to balance there in terms of what's going to be acceptable and hopefully honoring the traditional aspects of acrobatic gymnastics, but also to evolving with the narratives around the world as they change and they move so quickly in the world nowadays. And of course, things are much more amplified in a different way. People look at certain things a different way now that they never looked at before. But there's a certain level to acro that I think maybe, shouldn't be disturbed because it will maybe hurt the overall sport. But again, we have to wait and we have to see. I know that things go through different layers and cycles to get to different levels. And hopefully there's people within that conversation that care about preserving the best of the sport, but obviously having it evolve to support its ability to be recognized in the Olympic realm as well. So that'll be another discussion. I think I'm sure AcroCompanion will be a part of that to a certain degree as AcroCompanion continues to expand and continues to grow and continues to foster this very innovative acrobatic gymnastics environment. So I wanted to also ask David, just for your last thoughts and your last comments that you want to leave us with about AcroCompanion. Is there maybe something that we didn't touch on that you would like to have listeners know about AcroCompanion?
I think we almost covered everything except maybe the fact that we found a way to lower also the administration part on the side of organizers. We are working together with some really clever people to develop algorithms to automatically generate your starting order, judges panel based on some properties that you can give in. We are now actually doing the same for registration. So if you go to a competition and you want to, enter and fill in your accommodation, we are developing now some algorithms that it will automatically say, okay, it's better that these teams go in that hotel because they have double rooms also for the transportations. We are doing now a lot of developing in the background to make it easier that you don't have to spend hours and hours working on Excels, which change the day after. So this is what we are working on now. So it's not something you see in the front end, but it's something that runs in the back end. And it's just something to make the life a lot easier of all the federations and clubs.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much, David, for coming onto the show and for opening up listeners to a whole new digital world that you've created. AcroCompanion is bringing gymnastics into the future and is not only digitally supportive, but is making an effort to maintain human connectivity as well through its other initiatives. I think technology is at its best when it creates less hurdles, more ease, and more space to focus on the important components of an experience and bring communities closer together. And this is exactly what AcroCompanion seems to be all about. Thank you for creating the AcroCompanion community, David, and I'm so honored to be involved with it.
You're more than welcome, and thanks for having me on the show.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, where I interviewed co-founder of AcroCompanion, David Gillemot. The Live Like an Acrobat podcast is also available on Circus Talk, the inclusive, independent, and international online network for the circus industry. Circus Talk's mission is to create a level playing field for this industry and democratize access to information. Please consider subscribing to the Live Like an Acrobat podcast and to the CircuspreneurBlog.com, where you will find extended conversations and interactive content of each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast. I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto, and until next time, please stay safe and stay healthy.